Hello, my name is Catherine Mason, and today I will be talking about families overcoming obstacles. Here is what we will be discussing. There are different types of poverty you will see. Generational poverty is seen when children are born into poverty and they repeat that cycle. Situational poverty is seen to a circumstance such as a divorce or a natural disaster, but it is specifically related to a situation. Absolute poverty is when somebody is relying on shelter, a shelter or living in a car, but they do not have access to basic needs such as food and a roof over their head. You will also see urban poverty. This is in highly populated areas and they are often dependent on government assistance. And rural poverty is in lower populated areas, but they lack access to resources because they are spread so far apart. We can support families in poverty by getting to know each family personally. Never look at them as the family in poverty, but how they are as a individual family. We always have a common ground with these families because we both want what is best for their child, and we are never going to lower our expectations because a child is in poverty. We always want to keep the same high expectations. Children experiencing homelessness. Some reasons that they may be homeless are families are currently having issues with housing, such as a rent increase or damage to where they had been living. Maybe they can't afford it or they cannot find a job. Another reason is mental health issues, and substance abuse. Often these parents cannot hold down a job. They may not be able to find stable living because they are not able to follow the rules and pay their rent. And another reason is natural disasters. In 2015, the McKinney-Vento Act was enacted, and this requires districts to have a homeless liaison and provide transportation to those homeless students. But even with that act, we can still see over here, homeless students often attended 2 or more schools 28% of the time and attended 3 or more schools 31%. So still more than half of homeless students were moving around schools. How can we support these students? We can always ensure they are in a safe environment. We may be the only safe environment they see, especially if they are living in a car or they are hopping from house to house, from relative to relative. We should get to know our homeless liaison. That way we can provide the families with resources, and we should never try to fix this problem alone. Always reach out and rely on the community and the family to work as a team to fix and support this. And I love the quote, "It takes a village," because it definitely does, especially when we are trying to support our families who are experiencing homelessness. Now we're going to talk about violence. So gang violence is a rising issue. If we look down here, we can see the drastic rise. In 2000, there were 750,000 gang members in the United States. And in 2017, that number jumped up to 1.15 million. 40% of these gang members are youth. So these are children that are the ages of what we see in our schools. They can be recruited as young as 5. And some of these children are born in, so their parents are gang members. Therefore, when they grow up, they're automatically in that gang. And why would someone want to join a gang? A big reason is lack of leadership in the home. So either there is an absent mother, there is an absent father, maybe both of them are absent, and there is no leadership position in that home. Another one is a sense of belonging. And often when children don't feel like they belong anywhere, they will seek it out wherever they can find it. How can we support these families? Make sure we look out for warning signs of gang activity and that we know what those warning signs look like. We can also teach problem solving skills to students and other avenues to act out their anger opposed to violence. And we should always allow students to open up to us when they want to talk about something that they have seen at school, maybe at home. We always tell students, if you see something, say something. Chronic illness of a family member or student. So this is an illness that lasts as little as 3 months all the way to a lifetime. And we can support these students in our classrooms by guiding classmates on how they can support the student. So maybe they're out a lot of school, maybe they're in the hospital and their classmates want to write them a letter or visit them in the hospital. If these ideas are okay with the parents, we can show the students support even though they're not directly in our classroom. And whenever students are at school or homebound or in the hospital, however we are serving that student, we should know about the necessary medical concerns. We should always allow an open line of communication. That way we know what is going on with the student and what is going on with their health, so we know what to look out for. And we should always have an emergency plan. In case this student does have to go into the hospital for an extended period of time, what is that school going to look like for them? Or if the student has, say, a seizure at school, what is the process we are going to have to deal with that? And we should always be flexible. Many of these students have been dealing with these illnesses for an extended period of time. We will also see families who are going through the effects of natural disasters. We should always allow our students and our families to talk about their experiences, especially with each other, because many of them who live in the same communities, even though they don't have the same exact experiences, they can provide support by talking with each other. In 2017, Houston, Texas experienced Hurricane Harvey, and these are some of the things that happened. As you can see, the water is very high. This damaged a lot of homes. It affected the school and the community in a very large way. So I am not afraid of storms, for I am learning how to sail my ship. And I believe as an educator, we can help our students sail through the storms that they are going through. Risk and resilience. So many of the students who are going through those obstacles that we have discussed are considered at risk, but that does not mean that they have to stay at risk. We can help them become resilient. We can show them how to get through the other side of what they're going through and come out of it. As a advocate for students, we can be one of their protective factors, as well as counselors, other people in the community, maybe authority figures. We can help provide students with protective factors to help them become resilient. And some common characteristics that we see in resilient students are problem-solving skills. So even though a student may be facing homelessness or they may be facing a natural disaster, they know that there are going to be things that they can do and their family can do to get through these problems. Also, Students who are resilient often have a sense of purpose, so they never define themselves by their obstacle, but how they are going to get through it. Here's the resources that I used to create this presentation. Thank you.